our new series of immigrant and refugees in the New World. And we are trying to tackle this issue of culture change and culture differences that many immigrant and refugees are facing in America. And today, in our new episode, we're talking about how the culture has been affecting the education system, and this is connecting to the language barrier. Not alone, as I say and I promise, I'm right here, one of the best immigrant refugee teacher that I've known, Miss Clark. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And just a little bit background, she's going to talk more about herself, but she's been teaching and mentoring and helping refugees in different levels, either in class, out of class, and ESL. She has more than 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. More than 10 years helping and teaching immigrants and refugees. So, as you know, as you see, we have the person, the right person in the house. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for asking me.
For many years, we've seen and we've observed a lot of culture differences, a lot of language barriers when it comes to education system on refugees and immigrants in this country. And this has been affecting, not only youth, but also parents in many levels. And not only youth and parent immigrant, but also teachers like Ms. Clark that been in a classroom trying to teach these students. As you know, most of refugees that come into America, they speak different languages, and English is not their first language. Now getting here, you get started a new level in education, not only in education, but also parents have to face some language issues so that they can cope with the new society. Mm-hmm. So now, Ms. Clark, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got connected to immigrants and refugees here in Lexington.
Like you said, I've been doing this for 10 years now. Did a little bit of ESL tutoring when I was in college, and I taught a couple of classes at another university and had some refugee kids in there. So I became interested in becoming a public school teacher and just naturally gravitated toward ESL because I have a passion for these kinds of people that need help and want to learn English. So.
On your experience, mm-hmm. How does language barrier affect refugees when you see them step into a class?
Well, the language barrier itself is huge. I mean, these kids, they come to us from all over the world, and they step into this very different school system than they've ever been used to. Large groups of people, it's very loud, and they don't understand the language that's being spoken around them, so their poor brains are just tired. It takes about 6 months to get really comfortable.
To get into the system.
And that's just to really be able to negotiate the building, to remember where your classes are, to understand how to get through the lunch line.
Wow.
Because there's a number that you have to know. And that's not one of our biggest hurdles, but it used to be one of the things that we really had to help. Some kids I would walk down to the lunchroom and give them a step-by-step, here's how we do it. And then we started just writing on a card, hi, my name is, I'm a new ELL student, here's my lunch number, and all they had to do was just hand it to the lady in the lunch line.
So how does it look like in a classroom whereby you have all these American kids raised and born here, mm-hmm. and suddenly you bring a bunch of immigrant refugees in class, and as a teacher you have to focus in certain aspects in the classrooms. Does that not make the other kids feel like they're going backward because of or just like strategies that you teachers use to making sure that everybody is in the same level?
We have a lot of strategies that we use to make sure that all the students are learning something. We understand that not everybody's on the same level and not everybody can perform in the same way.
So tell me about after 6 months or mm-hmm. 1 year, once they're now in the system, they've made buddies and friends and all this, and they feel like now they can speak the language, they can be there, Mm-hmm. How's the experience and how does that change from being overwhelming, quiet, shy to like, we got this? How does that work? And mostly in a different aspect when it comes to classroom behavior, respect and all that. How does that work? How do you see that shift?
When a student starts learning the language and they can communicate, we usually communicate with their friends first, or the other ESL teachers. Usually they take off and they start growing and growing and growing. And it is as soon as they can step out of that, it's called the silent period, then their language ability they'll gain it fairly quickly.
So, I mean, coming from, let's say, for instance, African perspective, most kids, most youth have like total obedience towards teachers. And because the culture and the tradition have shown and have taught them that you have your parent home, or when you're in school, the second one is the teacher is your second parent. Have you observed those situations in class whereby immigrant kids or refugees become very, indisciplined in some ways?
With the immigrant populations, a lot of these refugee kids are also dealing with trauma that the American kids aren't dealing with.
Okay.
So I think a lot of the misbehavior that we see in the classroom is frustration over not knowing the language, frustration over not understanding the culture, and frustration over not knowing how to deal with what they've seen and heard.
Now, do you feel like some immigrants and refugee parents just ignore their kid in school?
It's a language barrier, and I think there's a certain amount of fear on the parents' part. They know that there's nobody at that school that speaks the language I speak, so how am I going to communicate with them?
So let's say grading system.
But I think that there is confusion. Because I've had to sit down and explain in almost every single parent meeting I've had. I explain how the grading system works.
But lastly, working in an education system, helping refugees and immigrants for 10 years and more, what advice would you give to refugee and immigrant parents when it comes to education system in America? And what would you change if you were to implement something on refugee and immigrant adaptation into education system?
Well, the advice I would give is just don't be afraid to communicate with the school. Ask questions, learn the school system. What would I change? And just like a newcomer school that students it's like students, parents, they can come. And, we have on-site staff interpreters. There's more flexibility in credits for kids so that, they don't have to just take Algebra 2 and pass it. We can have other types of math, that maybe some real-world math, some business math, that would satisfy some requirements so that they can get the skills that they need to be functioning adults in the culture, in the society that they're in.
As you've had, I know in your city, in your state, it's different. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to know. What can we do? What's the experience like in your city? So give us a comment, send us a suggestion, and we'll be so happy to making sure that community can share and have different experience where they can also have one view. And thank you so much, Ms. Clark, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your expertise, but also thank you so much for just being here and share with us and what's going on, and hope you'll continue doing a great job helping refugees and immigrants, and we can create a society of refugee welcoming and immigrant, right?
That would be wonderful.
So thank you so much, and
thank you.
Africa, we are one in a million, one in a million. Yes, we are.